Okay, recording.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to first week done of Collab Lab. I want to start off this meeting by kind of going around and giving some shout outs to some awesome work I saw. The first shout out I want to give, I really want to give a shout out to Kathy. Her comments on pull requests were just perfect. Like your level of detail that you went into when it comes to testing acceptance criteria and everything, leaving good feedback was just amazing. So that was such a joy to see. Brandon, your conversations in our channels around just technical implementation details and whatnot was great too. Like I love seeing that conversation. Vola, with the work you've done, you're kind of in an unfortunate situation where you're kind of stuck on your own for this week. But the work that I saw in the code that I reviewed was just awesome. And so I really want to give a shout out to you for that. And everybody did so well. I'm so proud of everybody this week. Dope.
And if I could really quickly, Joey, just say that Brandon worked with me. It was a team effort on the pull request. We worked together on putting the draft together and making edits. So we worked well together.
Oh, I'm flushing right now.
Him, so
As you could clearly see from my name title right now, yeah, I'm super flushed. I'm so embarrassed right now.
I also want to add
put that out there.
Sorry.
Hey,
Kathy, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was it. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that you sort of served as an example for me, and I was basing my approach on what I saw on what you did. So it was amazing. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there's some.
It was a first for myself and Brandon. So I think it was a learning curve and Googling and trying to anticipate what we should do. And I love some of the things that you did in the PR, in your PR. So you'll notice that I'll steal those next week. But we'll be working together, so maybe it won't really be stealing. Who knows?
Awesome. Cool. If there's nothing else, we can hop into demos. Laquita, are you good to go?
Yeah, I can't get my video. I can't see myself. Like I see everyone else and not me.
Oh, that's okay.
So I'm here. I wanted to show you guys my cool CSS shirt.
Oh.
It was very on brand. Anyway, you can get it from Tatiana T-Mac website. It's cool. Demos. So we had 2 issues open this week that that you guys were working on. And the first being able to read and write from the Firestore database so that users can persist information. And then the second being the working on navigating between the list view and the add an item view. So who would like to present first? Is there anybody who would like to demo first? Or I can take.
Oh, hold on. Right. My sub just was not unmuting there. I don't mind taking over for the first demo, if anything.
Awesome. So the way that it can be done so that both people in the pair feel included. One person can do presenting, sharing their screen, and another person can talk through it, or both of you can take turns talking through it, and one person share the screen, whichever works for the pair.
Sure. Sorry to for my very first action to kind of delineate from the norm, I guess. Did I say delineate? Sorry, I was reading that. To deviate from the norm. There we go. I could speak English. But I actually have another demo coming up on Friday. So Kathy gave me the very generous offer to allow me to use this as a demo to practice kind of like flying solo, since this one is like one of the simpler SUs and we now started, just so I could kind of, yeah. So I will actually be taking over this one, but it should be noted that Kathy and I worked a lot on this presentation structure beforehand. So anyway, In that case, I think I'm gonna share my screen, mayhaps. Let's see, hold up. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I just enabled it, so.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, try again. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. We're going to see a little bit of screenception for a little bit there. Okay, sweet. So, well, first of all, I may have merged, so we get to see a little bonus preview of Vola's implementation, Firebase, which I love, by the way. And yes, so our task, as was stated, was to allow navigation between the list view and add an item view, right? And our UI was meant to very clearly show, first up, can I move this panel? This panel is in the, there we go. To very clearly show which view we're currently on. We decided to set the list view by default, just so that as soon as you open up the page, we get the view, and then have the add an item be the second view that we go to. So a second route, if you would. Just as a little preview. Every time we click one, it switches. We get a nice little header up here. And the link itself down on the bottom gets colored and bolded. So that's pretty sweet. And now let's just check over our actual project structure. So as suggested, we used React Router, which is lovely. I love React Router. And we decided to set up a browser router around the actual app itself, our app file. And inside of our app file, we set our two routes here. Just like following React Router, we set switches outside, and we have those nested. So if, sorry, you're going to say something, Kathy, or whoever?
Oh, sorry, that was me
Oh,
complimenting. Go on.
No problem, no problem. And just to show, yeah, so the route works, right? Now, before I start going a little bit more in depth of the actual React router, simply because once again, this was the beginning of this project, I just kind of wanted to show the project file structure that I was going for, and just a little shout out to let people know, especially because we're now started, I just decided to go with what I'm used to. If there are some more structures or conventions or naming styles or anything like that that you want to follow instead, please don't think I'm like trying to set the pace of what everything here is. This is just me going with, you know, what I'm used to again. So for structure wise. So in that note, you will notice that inside each of our our subfolders, like components and stuff like that, I've also included an index folder. In this case, within our components, I've exported everything as regular. So I exported my components by default, but instead of importing them directly into our other files, I've exported them over to my own index.js file. Maybe I should come up with a better name for this, honestly. But basically, I'm using this as the main hub from which I'm going to be importing the rest of my components, if that makes sense. Basically, it just works better for me for scale, because that way, let's see, if we go to app.js, here we go. That way we could import all three components that that Kathy and I worked together on in one line. I just find it looks a little bit neater. Again, that's just what I'm used to. It's something I recently learned, so I'm trying to implement that. Also,
that's interesting, because then you can have the same import statement everywhere, but just pick and choose which components you want to bring in.
Yeah, so it's really nice, especially when you go to like a more complex thing, and let's say you have a views folder, you have a components folder, you have a modules folder, you have your Firebase utils folder. You know, it's just nice. So you don't have like half your page populated with imports.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I very recently, I picked that up maybe like 2 months ago. I love it. And one more thing when it comes to structure, well, not really structure so much, was that I decided, we decided we'd be using the BEM naming conventions. Again, that's just what we went with. If we want to switch it up to more traditional stuff like just camel case, whatever like that, please. Yeah. But anyway, enough of that. I just thought that the index.js approach was really interesting, and I really like it. I just wanted everybody to just kind of be aware of what I was doing, so I don't look like a madman with everything. So, onto the actual components. So what we did first of all if we go into our app.js, as said, we have two components rendering, our list component and our add item component. And it depends on the path that we have. We made sure that our home path has an exact parameter, obviously, to make sure that it only renders when we have nothing attached. Our add item itself, pretty simple. It just tells us add item, and our footer, our list does the exact same thing for now. It just says list, beautiful. Our footer is where things get interesting, because as we can see here, we have them nice and laid out. And what we did was we wrapped a footer component with each of our links. In this case, we chose to use a navlink component so that we could set active class names to conditionally render our styling, in which case was the lovely color and font weight. And it should be noted that I have Kathy to thank for with this, because this was where the strengths of pair programming really came out for me. When we were coming up with this at first, we were trying to figure out how to set an active class name on a component like this. And I had a bit of a problem where like I had a possible solution, and you get a little bit bullheaded about something. Like, I want this to work because I'm stubborn and this has to work. I was gonna set like a prop and basically set my class name toggled based on when the prop's presence. Like, like it is active. Yeah, pretty basic stuff. And anyway, it was kind of working, but not really. And then Kathy was like, hold up, I think we know about this. And pretty much was doing research, and then we just kind of flipped on everything, and it worked out perfectly. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. Shout outs to Kathy. Pair programming is amazing, and I'm really glad that we got to do that. And as said, this was pretty simple. That's pretty much it, I think, from a functionality point of view. Discussed the project structure, mentioned my class namings. And yeah, as you can see, we have the persistence once again with the active class name. And before I sign off, though, there's just one consideration I wanted to put forward, just because if we're working with a team, I thought it might be cool if we had some style of centralized theming. Like if we made like one big theming file. In this situation, we're using Sass. Again, if you guys want to use styled components or whatever like that, please let me know. I really don't mind. I like styled components as well. But it would be nice so that we don't need to worry about clashing colors and stuff like that if we set like our main color or accents color, whatever like that, using CSS variables or whatever situation we go for. But yeah, anyways, before this becomes the Brandon show, I would like to sign off. Thanks a bunch for listening, everybody. And yeah, this was pretty fun. I'm looking forward to working with my next collaborator next week. Thanks again. Beep, beep.
Awesome. Great work, Brandon and Kathy. Also, Brandon, first demo, like, wow. Way to knock it out. My first demo did not go like that. Yeah, you guys did great work. I appreciate you explaining how well pair programming works for you, like where the strength of that came in collaborating and figuring out things. And then also mind blown, okay, with the index.js. I'm like, I have been doing this all along. All along. Yeah, that's great. I'm totally going to steal that. But great work, Brandon and Kathy, and great work at just explaining so that we're all able to follow where we're going with the project. And since we'll be working with someone else next for this week, it's nice to make sure everyone's on the same page, and you did a great job of that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So Vulha, is that right? Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Yes. I usually get Lakita right, so I'm like, I try to get names right. Okay, get other people's names right, but it's okay. So, can we see what you worked with this week?
Okay, yes, absolutely. Okay, so let me just move stuff around. So I was working on connecting the app to the Firestore. I was doing so in order to achieve the following functionality. When a user clicks on add item, the item gets passed into database, and vice versa. But when something gets updated in the database, the list of items get re-rendered in real life. So for example, right now, we have a list of the following items that come from here. And we want to add this amazing item, right? So once we add it, it goes into our database. We could see it being present here. And automatically the list gets re-rendered. So imagine we no longer want this amazing item. So we could remove it from the database by deleting the document. So Firestore sort of allows you for very flexible file structure. So you could have various collections, and under these collections, they could be nested. So you could have documents and additional sub-collections. So it's pretty cool because of how flexible it is. And once we deleted our amazing item, we could see that it is no longer there. So let's take a look at the code. Okay, so I created 3 components. First component is a Firebase component, which allows us, so it uses the API provided by Firebase. Firebase has amazing documentations with a lot of tutorials, so it was my first time using it, and it was a relatively smooth process because of how well everything is explained in the docs. So the way it works, you first set up a reference to your database itself. And then I export it as a Firebase so I could call on it from different files, so I no longer have to go through the process. So I also have a file of add item, and the way it works, it takes a user input, and so on add item click, it passes it along to the database. So it does this through the call. Like I said, Firebase has various collections. So our collections here is just, we have just one simple collection, but you can make it as complex as your database is. So it also has a reference to the docs, and the docs are our items in this case. So it's like this particular instance, and there are a bunch of them, and you can reference them by their IDs. And when you pass along the information itself, it could be pretty much any object you desire. So whatever your structure is, it could get passed along, and it would display under this window. So I also have a listener event. So what it works, it's pretty much, it listens for changes. So Firebase has this function called on snapshot. It's also like a built-in functionality of their Firebase. And what it does is pretty much set up a listener that monitors the updates in your databases. And what's cool about it, it does not, like once something changes in database, like for example, once we remove an item or we add an item or change an item, it does not pass back the entire database, which would have made it slow, but instead it sort of caches the old version of the database and only passes on whatever was updated. And then internally it compares between the cached and updated version and re-renders the actual database content in real time, which I thought was pretty cool. I think that's about it.
Okay, thanks so much, Volha, for that. I just want to shower you with compliments because I like to do that for people. I haven't worked with Firebase in a super long time, right? Listening to you go through that, like I totally could follow that. If I were to be jumping on this project midway after this meeting, I would understand where things go and how things flow. So that's very good. Also, thank you for commenting, commenting your code. You know, in case someone else like you said you hadn't worked with it before, but you commented it just in case someone who else hasn't comes on and sees it. They're like, okay, I follow this. This makes sense to me. So great work there. Does anybody, any other collabs have any questions or concerns or things, comments, or showering with praises for Volha? Because you'll be working on this. You will be working on this, working with it too.
I loved your explanation of how that whole query snapshot thing works. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep. Great explanation.
we can do that.
Reactions.
I didn't even know that. Oh, okay.
We get to see your CSS shirt now, Laquita?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Here it is.
That's amazing.
I got this as a gift, but I was like, I had seen it already and I wanted it, and I'm like,
I
oh
want
man,
it
this is
too
so
now.
cool.
Best gift ever.
Yeah.
I figured out what was wrong with my camera too. I got a new computer, well, newish. I haven't used it much, and it has like a slider to automatically keep your camera off until you slide it over and on. And I'm like, why is it red up there? So I moved it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Huh.
Well, that's fine.
Little security feature. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Those demos were awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody. So now it is time for Jen. You want to take the stage and
Sure.
drop some knowledge?
Hi, everyone. Well, we've already had so much knowledge dropping just now. I learned a lot in how many minutes has it been? Like in the last 10, 20 minutes? Mind blown. Okay, so cool. Let me just set up my screen here and let me share. So today, if I can share the right screen. Share the whole screen. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know what button I clicked. Okay, cool. So where'd you all go? Well, your faces disappeared. That's okay.
Like it minimizes when you screen share.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about code reviews and how they work in Collab Lab. So we've already gone through a week of Collab Lab. We've already had one code review. So we thought it'd be really helpful to just kind of go through and just talk about the actual code review process and what kinds of things we want to focus on as a team. So we'll be talking about what is a code review, the code review cycle that we're going to be working with, what makes a code review a great code review in bold, and then how can you help others review your code, and how can you review others' code, and then also like some tips and tricks on exploring code in GitHub. So what exactly is a code review? So what a code review is, it's more of like, it's a conversation, and also the things that I like to emphasize are, it's basically getting your team up to speed and making sure that you fully understand what you're doing as well. And so this is a huge part of the collaboration, especially in Collab Lab, because as you see, all of the whole app is built on different issues, and each week we'll split off into 2 pairs to tackle these issues. If we don't have a lot of good collaboration, you can imagine if we split off, don't talk to each other at all, don't do code reviews, after maybe even a week, it might get a little bit hairy to kind of stitch the issues and the code back together to have one cohesive product. So that's why code reviews are really great. Not only do you, just like in the demos just now, you learn from your other team, you're also trying to teach your other team what you learned this week, also what struggles you've had. Another good thing about code reviews, especially in Collab Lab, is that new cohorts like yourselves can go to past GitHub pages for past cohorts and kind of see what they struggled with as well. And oftentimes in the comment section of the code review, you can see like how they tackled the problem, maybe different resources they saw online. So that's why code reviews are awesome. And code reviews are basically, I think Stacy said code reviews are like the bread and butter of Collab Lab. Like it's where a lot of learning and a lot of great collaboration work happens. So for our Collab Lab, what we do is we have this code review cycle where once you've tackled the issues, you open a pull request, and then you go ahead and you request review from the opposite pair. Once they review your code, then you'll make the changes from the request or from the feedback that they gave you, and then it gets kicked back to the mentors, and the same process happens again. They'll review code, you make changes if there's any feedback, and then once everything is passed and there are no more changes to be made, we go ahead and merge into main. So that's an exciting time. So what makes a code review a great code review? So we talked earlier about how collaboration is really important, getting people up to speed, and also learning. But in Collab Lab especially, what makes a code review a great code review is not necessarily focusing on stylistic changes. So those are always helpful comments as well, and feel free to leave those in the code. But what we really want to do is we want to kind of foster a really good kind of growth mindset and a very safe space for everyone to learn. And so we really want this also as a record keeping tool for you. So you remember what you struggled with. It'll be great talking points for when you're in interviews. So what you want to be able to do is we also have different sections. We have a nice template for the PR requests so that you can test out your own code before you actually push the PR up. And you can take screenshots so that you can show how you test it locally. And then also doing all the explanations, making sure, will you even understand this code in a month? Because I've oftentimes just kind of like a maniac was just like coding just to get to deadline, and then a month later I'm like, I wrote this, I don't even remember. But also remember that this is a safe space, and so we really want to focus on praising your other team members, defaulting to approval, and really being kind and empathetic. We don't want to be too critical, but also just sharing knowledge and pointing things out in a really kind way will be a great code review. Also, as someone who's writing the code, you also want to help others understand your changes. And then when someone reviews their code, try and answer all the questions, and then also make sure to take your time. So that's one of the reasons why we, we not expect, but we encourage people to have some sort of draft PR up earlier in the week so that really mentors can kind of check in with you. And so you, both the reviewee and the reviewer, can take their time looking at the code and understanding what's going on. So one huge tip, I was definitely guilty of this in my initial cohort, is that I would usually just skim the code on GitHub with tools that we'll show you later. But I would sometimes not run the code locally from the pair, like pull down the actual branch. And so what that does is sometimes you'll be like, hey, it looks good to me, everything's all great. But if you don't run it locally, what happens is then like our pair was like, yeah, it looks good, kick it to the mentors, and then all of a sudden the mentors find like 10 different issues, and then you feel really bad because you didn't do your due diligence. But anyways, so what's really important is run the code locally, make sure everything works, because then you want to make sure like the other team pushed everything up, everything's resolved. No, you can see if there's any weird bugs that are happening, especially since we're building this as mobile first. You can go ahead and pop it up in your Chrome developer kind of like mobile view and see if everything's working as planned. Also, what's really important is you can put in instructions into your PR on like maybe there are some things that you didn't get done, or also like some things that are a bit quirky that maybe you couldn't resolve in this week. And so including instructions on how to run the code and also like just like little quirks here and there is great for this like testing locally thing. And then if you're not sure how to run the code or what the descriptions the other team gave you are, ask any questions. It's a great learning opportunity for everyone, especially like if something you wrote wasn't clear, it's good for other people to let you know so that maybe we can all write it better next time. So how reviewees help reviewers review your code. So if we go, actually, can you all continue to see the page? So if we go to GitHub over here and we look at our code, and we have actually where is it? Did it get taken out? Project brief, it's not there anymore. But if I pull up a new pull request, there's nothing there. Did we move the PR template?
I
I don't see it anymore.
Which file is it? Is it
The PR template?
Let me check the pull request.
I feel like it disappeared. Well, anyways, we can just talk about it since you all already saw it this last week anyways. So, what's really great is like we have a really nice PR template, and it kind of walks you through the steps of how you help others review your code. Having the ACs right up there so people can see what you are trying to accomplish. Also adding a really meaningful PR description. So it kind of like is a nice summary of what you did and what you're trying to achieve at a glance. Also, maybe review your code. Like some great comments are things you struggled with, what you did, what you might want to update in the future, but just didn't have time to get to. Also, like what's great is that we encourage you to make draft PRs earlier in the week. So if you are stuck on something, what you can do is ask questions in the comments and then tag the mentors. So that way everyone's on the same page. A code review template. So there's a PR template. Is that what you mean, Kathy? And so asking your questions, and then also if there's some interesting behavior or things like that, we can take static screenshots to show like different additions, but you also have these tools available to you to actually record like mini videos that you can also drag into the comments or into the PR, so that you can use Loom, Sketch, or Zappy, so that people can actually see. For example, not in this project, but in another project, we had an issue where we needed to be able to pan on a Google map. So having a static image doesn't really show that. So it's nice to have like a GIF or a video for that. So some of the cool things in GitHub, maybe let's just open GitHub for this, I think is easier to see. But so GitHub looks a little bit different now, but not too much different. So what you can see from here is, I guess I'll just go over this slide first and then I'll show it in GitHub. So you can see this is kind of like how a PR works. And when you're a reviewer, one of the best things to do is go to the Files Changed tab. And what it'll do is it'll actually, this is the Files Changed tab here. What it'll do is it'll actually show you all the different files that were changed. And then if you press on this little arrow here, you'll actually be able to see the diff. So the difference between what changes they were actually made versus the original. And then what you can also do is you can also go into the code and make comments, which is really great. And then you can also click off each of the different files as you viewed them and say, oh, looks good to me, I already looked at it. So once you do that, then you can click review changes and you have, I think, 3 different options. I forget what the first one is, and then there's one that's approve, and then there's one that's request changes. So if there's some like glaring issues, you can ask the PR back to the people who wrote it and say, hey, these are some issues that I saw, so please check these out. So another thing that you can see is you can also navigate to different commits. So I think, this is just kind of like a quick overview of some of the tools you'll use for code reviews and PRs for Collab Lab. But I feel like navigating GitHub and kind of like using its full potential, is kind of like it's its own beast of a topic to handle. So if you all have any questions too, feel free to ask me or any of the other mentors, because actually you can do a lot of stuff in GitHub, which is really awesome. And I've even introduced stuff into my work that my team at work didn't know how to do before. So it's really awesome. But anyways, so that's basically kind of how GitHub works and kind of the quick tips on how to make it easier for yourself to review someone's code after you've tested it locally and you're just looking at the code on GitHub. Another couple things you can see, how many lines were added and deleted, navigating through the different commits here from this dropdown. And then, yeah, you want to just make sure that you're on the most recent commit. Sometimes maybe it'll cache the wrong commit for you and you're not seeing what everyone else is seeing. So just those are some of the quick things on GitHub that you can check for PRs. Also one thing is, if you see this refresh button, that usually means that there's another, a more recent commit that you're not currently seeing on this page. So if you see this refresh button, before you actually approve or do anything for the PR, you should hit refresh to make sure that you have seen all the most recent changes. So I hope that has been helpful to try and better understand the code review process and what code reviews are maybe supposed to be like. So I would love to end this talk to kind of give everyone else the space to talk about what has been your experience with code reviews in the past. Maybe other mentors can also like chime in on this, or other people who have had code reviews. And then how did you feel doing code reviews this week? And how has it felt over the last week or in your previous experiences to have your code reviewed? So I'll open it to everybody else now. And also feel free to ask any questions. Sorry, I didn't ask that earlier, but feel free to ask any questions if anything wasn't clear.
Thank you for for doing this module. This was super helpful. You know, like you said earlier, like Stacey said, code reviews are like the bread and butter to Collab Lab. You know, it's where we really get to interact with each other as a team and just work really well together. So I'm glad we're covering this early because it's so important in the whole process.
Yes.
I guess I can go first. Just talking about thoughts on code reviews. With my experience with past code reviews, I would say that like when I first got into like engineering, software engineering, like I was like horrified of code reviews. I remember like the first time I finished a feature, I was like, all right, cool, my feature's done. It's tested, it works, it's great. And I was like, oh no, I have to submit it for code review. And I remember when I submitted it, I was just like, they're going to find out I don't know what I'm doing and they're going to fire me and I'm going to be homeless. And then I submitted it, and people in my team, thankfully, are very nice. And even when there was nothing, like no changes requested in my pull request, they would leave, you know, positive feedback for what I've done. And I feel like that's something that I try to do in my pull requests is even if I have no changes that I want to see, you know, I always like to leave a comment that says, you know, good job, or like point out code that I like and I want to see more of it. Does anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to be another cheerleader for the PR template because it's really nice. Someone who I didn't have the bootcamp experience. I didn't have this awesome Collab Lab experience. I kind of like taught myself, so I was like learning in a bubble. So it's like, you know, you think you know like all the best ways to do things, but when you're doing it yourself, it's much different than when you get on a team. So I, like Joey, was terrified of getting a code review and somebody reading my code. And then in my experience, it wasn't as terrifying as I thought it would be, but I didn't have that feedback of, hey, even if there's nothing to change here, here's some positive energy your way, which can really be like helpful in reviewing someone else's code. Just because it took me months to not feel on edge to send out a PR when I was more sure of what I was doing in the role, I wasn't sure of how people were receiving it because I wasn't getting any real like feedback in that way. And you all have been doing like an awesome job of that. And I mean, especially big shout out to you, Voha. Like you powered through and got the job done, and then you demoed so well. Like, like at first week, it's like curveball, and you're like, fine, I got it. And so yeah. And then code reviews help with things like that, because when you feel like, oh, I've had a week that I didn't really expect, and you get some positive feedback for that, it feels great, you know, for your work. So yeah, that's all I have on it.
Nice. I'm curious, well, Brandon, Kathy, do you have experience with code reviews in the past? Did you do that at all in your boot camps, or you ever had to do that in the past? No.
Everything like this is pretty much the timing is hilarious because I had my first code review maybe 4 days ago, and the mortifying ordeal of your code being known, dude, as I said, it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. But yeah, this is like super new for me, and it's cool. It's super cool. It's like knowing that somebody's looking over what you're doing. As scary as it is, it also means that chances are they're gonna catch something you didn't. It's scary, but it's cool, and that's all I have to say.
I agree with Brandon and with Ditto, a lot of what he said. I've never had the experience of code reviews in my bootcamp. It's part of, what I was looking forward to with Collab Lab, the opportunity to have other people or many eyes on my code. As scary as it is, I'm trying to force myself into those situations to maybe kind of beat out some of my fear and anxieties associated with sharing my code. So I really appreciated the positive feedback, that I received in general, but also like in the PRs and Joey mentioning to include that in your code review. I love the PR template, and I was just kind of, Jen, do you prefer Jen or Jennifer? I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't have a preference, but I think you can call me Jen because it's faster.
Okay. I was like, I think Slack says Jen, but Zoom says Jennifer. So now my brain was unsure which to go with. But
my legal name on Zoom, as a lot of other people.
I definitely did not put my legal name on Zoom, but I digress. Don't want probing questions on that one. But anyway, I love the PR template, and I was just kind of asking, and I, had kind of mentioned this to Brandon about if there was a more specific, pull request, not pull request, but like feedback code review template similar to the PR template. Like, I didn't know if saying good job would be condescending for me to, Volha, because we're peers per se, or, or maybe I'm not her, maybe I know less coding than she, you know what I mean? I didn't know what to include, and I didn't want to be nitpicky, but so if there is a template, I would love one. It would be a nice guide, but verbally I did get some cues today and through the presentation. So that was very helpful. Thank you. That's a long answer to your short question.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I've seen sort of checklists that some teams will use for pull the code down, run it, check the console for errors. Like there are there's kind of a procedure that you can put around it. I don't think we haven't been that formal with it here, but I don't know if Joey or Laquita or if anybody's had kind of experience with like more of a checklist approach to code reviews in the past.
I created the checklist approach where I was.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Mostly because I kind of wanted to see them more, and then I wanted to throw in put something positive at the end. Actually, because I worked in a startup first, and it was like there were only two of us, so we were just reviewing each other's code. It was like always a pretty quick thing, but I kind of like just having a little bit more structure, like, okay, you might not hit all these points, but here are some ideas or some things you could do here, just for yourself. So it's like, we know everyone has this template, so nothing, obviously nothing personal here, just trying, everyone's here to encourage, and so everyone can get better and complete the project. So sometimes it's nice to have that for that reason, just so like it's blanket and safe for everyone to work with.
Yeah, is that something you could share with the team?
I can do that. Yeah, I can share it.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody else want to add anything about code reviews before we move on to next week's stuff?
Yeah, I could add on whatever Casey and Brendan already said. So I've never formally had a code review. Usually when people check your code, they check whether everything works, but they would never give you feedback like on your code structure, on your naming, on the comments, on all the important little details that makes your code good, clean, and scalable, so I'm really looking forward to that experience. And thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions or comments about code reviews, I can share my screen and we can go ahead and look at our board and see what's coming down the pipeline for this coming up week. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so I get to move these tickets to done. They are in production now.
Oh, that feels so good to see.
Yeah, 2 down. All right, so let's look at our next coming up issues. So as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchase items. So the shopping list is going to consist of a set of items associated with the user's token. In order to create a new list, we should follow the following sequence. We're going to generate a new unique token. We're going to save that token to local storage. And then we're going to show the user the list view. There is a script in source lib token.js that the pairs can use to generate that token. For AC, the users who do not already have a token, a button should exist that when you click on it, it allows them to create a new list. Clicking the button generates a new token and saves it to their local storage. So if they come back, they still have access to that token they generated. Then once the token has been created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view. So that's the React router stuff that was worked on this week. And then our next issue, as a user, I want to add a new item into my shopping list so that I can start recording purchases. So a shopping list consists of the following data points: name of item, how soon are you likely to buy it again, and there's some time frames that we can drop in there. The last purchase date. And as for acceptance criteria for this, they are presented with a form that allows them to enter the name of the item and select how soon they anticipate needing it. Again, the soon, kind of soon, not soon that we mentioned up here. When a user submits this form, the item is saved into the database associated with the user's token. Along with the item name, an integer corresponding to the estimated number of days until the purchase date is saved. So we have 7/14/30. And then the last purchase date should be set to null initially. So as soon as you have an item, the last purchase date is going to be null because they haven't purchased it yet. So looking at these two issues, it looks like we have some work with the setting up the token and utilizing local storage for issue number 3. And then for issue number 4, we have some more database work.
Joey, can we look at the wireframes too?
Yeah. Is that I
put a link in the chat if you want to just put that.
Awesome. Yes. So let's see, we're looking for the new shopping list and the new item. So yeah, we can kind of go through all of them. So we have the menu for how soon you want to buy something: soon, kind of soon, not soon. We have these labels and whatnot. Let's check out the
other one. Yeah, should be the welcome screen actually.
Oh, this guy. Here we go.
Yep.
Perfect. So this is kind of what we want to aim for. If you have a token already in local storage, you can pop it in here to join existing list. If you don't have a token, you can hit this button, and then this button will create a token for you, save it to your local storage, and you'll be able to use that token to build a list, and then this will route you to the list page.
So the all the wireframes are sort of the complete versions of all these screens. So this week you're really only responsible for that create a new list button.
Yep.
And all the stuff below it that's in future stories. So
right.
Yeah, try to stick just strictly to the AC, so you're not taking on more than the 5 hours that I'm kind of expecting.
Yeah, totally. So with that in mind, we have our pair set up. Let Let me get my notes out real quick. All right. So looks like our pairs for this week are going to be Kathy and Volha, and then Brandon. We are reaching out for Francesca. In the meantime, though, us mentors are going to be acting as a pair partner for you.
Oh boy. Okay. No problem.
So with that in mind, how do we want to divvy up this work? Do we want the folks that worked on Firebase last week to work on some of the token stuff, or is there any story that is standing out to anybody that they want to take?
Maybe since Brandon is left sort of, by himself, he could choose what he would prefers to do.
Totally. Is there one that you prefer, Brandon?
Oh God, now the choice is in my hand. No! Quick, somebody flip a coin. Now, I think that it might actually be more fun if we kind of flipped duties now. So since I didn't work with Firebase last time, I touched Firebase this week. And so we could work on the different aspects of this application, I guess. So
Okay.
I could be down to working with Firebase this time. Should be fun.
You got it. Okay.
You can assign Francesca to that too. I'm hopeful that she'll maybe just was a little out of touch for a few days.
No worries. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of y'all. Great start to this. I'm really excited for what we're going to see. I can tell already that the collaboration I'm seeing and the conversations we're having in our meetings here and in Slack during the week are awesome, and this project's going to be amazing. So before we head out, does anybody have anything else they want to add for the week?
Oh, yes. So we had it mentioned in the threads on Slack and also in the call last week that GIFs might not be completely accessible to some people because they might induce motion sickness and things like that. And so we wanted to actually change some of the templates that we have to include more collab-y pictures that are static instead of GIFs. And so I was wondering if everyone was okay if I don't know, we could do a thumbs up or wave or something, and I'll take a screenshot if that's okay with everyone. Yeah, cool. Okay. We can also do it again next week if you all end up getting webcams too. So don't worry. We can do this one and then we can do it another week too. So cool. Okay. I'm gonna take a screenshot. Ready, everyone? Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody.
All right, good way to end the meeting. If nobody else has any questions or any comments, we can wrap up. Brandon, we're gonna keep you updated with your pair. If Francesca still needs to be offline for a bit, some of the mentors, we will hop in and pair with you on this.
Of course,
Yeah,
thanks.
sure.
I appreciate it. I hope Jessica's okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Great job, everybody.
Yeah, good job.
Really,
This is
really
awesome.
nicely done. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Have
All
a
right,
good
folks.
week.
Yeah, have
Have
a
a
good
good rest of
Sunday.
your
Have a good week.
weekend.
Yeah.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe and
See
be
you later.
healthy, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.